The first sound that cut through the late afternoon diner was not laughter or music, but the sharp scrape of a chair shoved back too hard, followed by a cruel, careless laugh that didn't belong in a place that smelled of coffee and fried onions. In that instant, something invisible shifted in the air, the kind of moment where ordinary life pauses and fate quietly leans forward to watch. No one inside the diner knew it yet, but a single act of disrespect was about to collide with a force far bigger than pride, money, or youth. Before the story unfolds any further, take a second. If you believe kindness still matters in a world that often forgets it, if you believe people can change and second chances are real, then like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. The diner sat just off the highway, worn but warm, the kind of place truckers stopped at because it felt human. The booths were cracked vinyl, the windows smudged with fingerprints and dust, and the bell above the door rang with a tired little sound each time someone walked in. For decades, it had been held together by routine, coffee refills, and the quiet strength of one elderly waitress who had seen far more life than most people noticed. Her name was Margaret, though most customers simply thought of her as part of the diner itself. Her back was bent slightly from years of standing, her hands lined and trembling when she carried heavy plates, but her eyes still carried patience. Life had taken much from her over the years. A husband lost too early, a son who moved away and stopped calling, and a body that reminded her every morning that time never waits. Still, she showed up every day, tying her apron carefully, because dignity mattered to her, and work kept loneliness from swallowing her whole. That afternoon, the door swung open and a wave of cold air rushed in with a group that did not belong to the diner's quiet rhythm. At the center was a rich teen, barely 18, dressed in expensive clothes that screamed money and entitlement. His watch gleamed, his shoes were spotless, and his confidence was loud enough to fill the room. He had grown up with everything provided, mistakes covered by influence, and consequences softened by wealth. To him, the world was a place that existed to serve. He slouched into a booth without waiting, scrolling on his phone, barely glancing up when Margaret approached. She moved carefully, offering the same tired smile she gave everyone. Her voice was soft as she asked what he would like. He barely acknowledged her presence, his irritation growing with each second she took to write down his order. When she politely asked him to repeat himself, because age had stolen some sharpness from her hearing, impatience turned into cruelty. The insult came easily to him, tossed like trash onto the floor. It wasn't loud enough to stop the diner, but it was sharp enough to wound. He mocked her slowness, her age, her worth, acting as if her existence inconvenienced him. A few people looked down at their plates. Others shifted uncomfortably, pretending not to hear. Margaret froze for half a second, just long enough for the words to sink in. Her smile faded, replaced by something far sadder than anger. It was the look of someone who had been reminded, yet again, how invisible she had become. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She simply nodded and turned away, her shoulders slightly lower than before. Years of surviving had taught her that silence was safer than pride. But silence has weight, and that weight settled heavily over the diner. What the rich teen didn't notice was the group seated near the back. 6 men, broad-shouldered, leather jackets draped over their chairs, road-worn boots resting against the diner floor. Their motorcycles were parked outside, engines cooling under the fading sun. These bikers had come in quietly, ordered coffee, and minded their own business. But respect was a language they understood deeply, and disrespect was something they never ignored. These men had lived hard lives. Some had grown up poor, some had lost families, some had survived things that never made headlines. The road had taught them loyalty, humility, and the value of people who worked with their hands. They watched Margaret every time she passed their table, noticing how carefully she moved, how she refilled their cups without being asked, how she treated them like men, not trouble. When the insult landed, every biker felt it like a punch. Not because it was directed at them, but because it reminded them of mothers, grandmothers, and the people who had stood by them when the world turned its back. They didn't jump up immediately. They waited, watching how the moment would unfold, giving the young man a chance to realize what he had done. The rich teen continued eating, laughing at something on his phone, completely unaware that the room had turned against him. He saw Margaret again when she brought the bill, her hands shaking slightly as she placed it on the table. That was when he scoffed, shaking his head, and made another cutting remark, this time louder, this time meant to humiliate. The diner went silent. One of the bikers slowly stood up. Then another. Chairs scraped back, heavy boots hit the floor, and suddenly the space felt smaller. Not threatening in a violent way, but heavy with presence. The rich teen finally looked up, confusion flickering across his face as he took in the size and seriousness of the men approaching. His confidence wavered for the first time. The bikers didn't shout. They didn't insult him back. Their strength was in their calm. They positioned themselves between him and Margaret, creating a quiet barrier of respect. The oldest among them, his beard streaked with gray, looked at the teen with eyes that had seen regret up close. He didn't need to raise his voice. The message was clear without words. What you did was wrong, and this place, this woman, deserved better. For the first time in his life, the rich teen felt small. Not because of fear, but because of shame. He noticed Margaret standing behind the counter, her eyes wide, her hands gripping the edge for balance. He saw the way other customers watched him now, not impressed, not intimidated, but disappointed. All the money in the world couldn't shield him from that feeling. Something cracked inside him then. A memory surfaced of his own grandmother, long gone, who used to work 2 jobs and still bake him cookies at night. He remembered how patient she had been, how easily the world had dismissed her too. The realization hit hard and fast. He had become the kind of person who hurt people like her. His face flushed, and his posture changed. The arrogance drained away, replaced by an awkward, heavy awareness of his actions. He reached for his wallet, hands unsteady, and left far more money on the table than the bill required. But money alone wasn't enough. He looked at Margaret again, really looked this time, and nodded his head in a way that acknowledged her humanity, not her service. The bikers watched closely, ready to intervene if needed, but sensing the shift. When the teen stood up, he did so slowly, carefully, as if afraid of making another wrong move. He walked past the bikers, past the other customers, and out into the fading daylight. The doorbell rang again, softer this time, like a breath being released. The room stayed quiet for a moment longer, then life slowly returned. Forks clinked, coffee poured, conversations resumed. One of the bikers walked up to the counter and gently placed a folded bill into Margaret's hand, covering it with his own for a brief moment. She looked up at him, eyes shining, and managed a small, grateful smile. That single gesture did more for her than he would ever know. As the bikers left, engines roaring back to life outside, Margaret leaned against the counter, letting the moment pass through her. She had been hurt, yes, but she had also been defended. Seen, valued, and that mattered more than the insult ever could. Outside, the rich teen sat in his car for a long time before driving away. The silence inside the vehicle was loud, filled with thoughts he had never allowed himself to have before. He realized that power without kindness was empty, that respect could not be bought, and that one careless moment could reveal who he truly was. That day didn't fix him overnight, but it planted a seed. And sometimes, that is how change begins. Years later, Margaret would still work at the diner, a little slower, a little grayer, but with a deeper strength in her step. And somewhere down the road, a young man would remember a diner, an elderly waitress, and a group of bikers who showed him what real strength looked like. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of someone you love or a moment that changed you, please take a second now to like this video, share it, and stay subscribed to the channel. Stories like this exist because people like you care. Before the video ends, I have one special request. Comment below with a single word that represents what this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you know. Kindness is quiet, but it is powerful. And sometimes, it only takes one moment, one choice, and a few brave souls to remind the world how to be human again.